Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another vlog. We are back again at Pigeon Raceway on another track walk. We're with the man, Mr. Nathan Simpson, and yeah, it's a bit wet, as you can see. We may have had a few problems with the awning this morning. It was a bit flooded, to say the least, and also we had another problem where, well, one of the bars snapped, so yeah, it kind of is half collapsed, but we should be all good. But as of right now, we're just going for a track walk, you know, seeing how wet it really is, and there's puddles everywhere, so that's going to be great. Yeah, as you can see, just one massive puddle right down the middle of the straight, which is going to be fun in towards turn one.
It's going to be a wet one.
Yeah, it is going to be a wet one, I think. But apparently they give it to dry up a bit later, so it might not be too bad. But yeah, I guess we will just jump straight into later on, where we'll, just before we'll go on track, I guess. So here we are for practice one then. So it was quite interesting practice, as obviously this is my first ever time around Clay Pigeon Raceway in the wet. So yeah, I didn't really know how it was going to go, but we nevertheless started our engine up to go out on track and get some wet practice, because I thought it was going to rain a bit later on for qualifying and the race, and I thought, you know what, get as much practice as I can and in as possible. To be honest, it's quite difficult because these wet tyres are brand new, so I've had to bed them in a little bit, and obviously that's quite difficult when there's loads of cars on the track just going past you. So I was trying to get out of the way a little bit here and just try and bed my tyres in before pushing a little bit more. And yeah, it's very difficult this track in the wet, not gonna lie, I was finding. Especially, like I said, I'm still in a pre-evo, unfortunately. So yeah, it was very difficult to keep up with people, and I was basically just driving around, doing some lap times, practicing. And yeah, it was all good and well until coming up to the horseshoe a couple laps in, and I actually took the first part off nicely and then hit the curb here, spun the car around, and actually lost a chassis protector in the meantime. So yeah, we really had to watch out for that. Luckily I took the rest of the chassis protectors off after this practice session, just so it wouldn't cause any more debris on the track. But yeah, nevertheless I carried on, and here I actually quarrelled with someone. I actually attempted a rash dive down the inside into the hairpin, and well, it didn't quite work because he got a much better exit using the wet line there, which wasn't ideal, but nevertheless we kept pushing on and tried to follow him, I guess, and try and learn some lines. I also next lap went for a bit of a push lap and tried to set my new personal best in the wet here as he dove into the pits. So I got a fairly decent exit out of turn one, run down the straight just as we start the lap now, run down towards turn one. Very difficult corner in the wet. I find that you really have to try and be aggressive turning in on the wheel, but not let the back end kick out. The problem I was finding was I was on a full wet setup with wet tyres. I think a dry setup with wet tyres would have been perfect. Unfortunately for this practice session I didn't do that, which was kind of annoying, but I thought I would change it to a dry setup for next practice session, which unfortunately I didn't record, which was a bit annoying. But nevertheless, we were coming through to end this lap, then run up to the final corner of the lap as we take it very decently. Probably could have been a bit better and taken a bit more speed, but down the start finish straight, and there is my fastest hot lap throughout that practice session. I decided to dive into the pits a bit early just because it was not working, this full wet setup with the wet tyres. So I decided to just head back into the pits and get my mechanics to change the setup over and maybe have a bit of a better experience in practice too. Alright boys, I'm here with the man, Mr. Brindy Boy. So we just finished practice. Looks like it's going pretty decent. Not too great. It's pretty dry now though. Yeah, this is going to be good. Anything to say?
No.
I basically summed up well, didn't I? Yeah. Alright, well, let's do this. So we go again, this time for qualifying. And I also want to add this part in because something quite interesting happens here. I'll let you just listen to the raw footage quickly.
Go for the next one, there's always another lap.
Yeah.
Okay?
So basically what happened there was one of the junior cars went into the final corner barrier and completely destroyed the car at quite a high speed, so it was quite a heavy impact. Luckily it was alright, you could see him in the corner there with his helmet on. He just jumped over the barrier quickly, but yeah, it was a pretty nasty impact, and we all saw just water just fly over the barrier, obviously of the pit lane, so it was quite weird to see. But yeah, that comes important a bit later on because you'll see what happens. But for now, qualifying is a go. So with qualifying, I've really struggled with understeer through turn 1 and turn 2, and also bogging out of the hairpin, which was not great to say the least, but I still pushed on anyway and tried to get the best lap I could possible. So these are my 2 fast laps I got. So through the chicane, just seeing it was just turning, but I couldn't get the corner in time, but luckily still managed to take it fairly decently. Through the hairpin section, very nicely, but just a bit bogging out of the hairpin. Like I said, it's very difficult to nail that hairpin, and especially when you don't have the correct setup. But luckily when I went back into the pits I got that repaired. But around the final corner, and this was my fast lap as I'm about to start here, run down the straight. It was also my final lap as I start it now, run down towards turn 1, slam on the brakes very nicely, hit the inside curb there, just take out nice and wide, set yourself up very nicely for the chicane, hit the apexes of the chicane, run the car out very nicely, run down towards the hairpin once again, but once again I just can't get on the power properly out of the hairpin because it was just bogging. I was on the accelerator but just wasn't going anywhere because of such a low speed corner, but nevertheless through the buttons bend now to final corner for the final time of qualifying, run the outside curve very nicely, down the straight, and there is my fastest hot lap in qualifying. And once again, coming to the pits, I realised that I actually have to get myself weighed in, so I am actually the correct weight with the kart. So I had to once again step out the car and just start pushing it down the pit lane to get myself weighed in. Luckily, I did manage to reach the required amount, which was 162 kilos. I think on that one I was 164, so I was just a couple kilos over, but that is okay with the lead weight in the kart. So, we've just had qualifying, and it didn't go great. Dead last. Yeah, that's my life. Which is great, I guess. I guess I will have to see what happens in the first heat. I have a bit of issue with the understeering through turn 1 and turn 2. We think we've come up with a solution, and Nathan's literally on it now. What a legend. So, yeah. So here we go then for race 1 or heat 1, and I just went into this thinking, you know what, I'm starting last after a pretty terrible qualifying, so I'll just go all out, see what I can do in towards turn 1 and throughout this race. And I kind of ruined my chances straight away here as we start the karts up, and as you can see someone actually gets stuck here, you can't get it started. I kind of get a bit annoyed by this because I've lost all this time and I need to try and make it back up to the grid now, and well, so I can start the race, and by doing that I get a bit too trigger happy on cold tyres and end up spinning it around on the formation lap, which makes my work twice as hard now as I really have to try and push to try and catch up, and on cold tyres that ain't easy, as you can see, just going wide there. But luckily we do catch up in time for the start and we get going here for race 1, run down the straight towards turn 1. I just think, right, let's go for it, so I absolutely send it down the inside of this guy here, and another guy on my left there, just send it down the inside of him, and I get past 2 karts here as I just send it down the inside of them again and make it up 3 positions, which is very nice work for me, somehow managing to pull that off. But coming towards the hairpin, this is where it started to go a little bit wrong, as I noticed I was just bogging out the hairpin and I couldn't get a best of X's as I could have, which was kind of annoying. But I kept pushing on anyway, and I was just understeering, as you can see, through that corner there. And it was only mid-race where that started going away, really, as I started to get used to the handle of the car. Obviously, we changed the setup a bit, so it would stop understeering through turn 1 and turn 2. But in doing that, it's kind of made it a little bit harder through the middle sector. As you can see, I just went massively wide there, which wasn't ideal, to say the least. It probably didn't help that I spun on those tyres on the formation lap either. but nevertheless we have got a bit of a gap now between me and the car ahead, which isn't ideal because I want to try and stick with the pack and just try and make my way up, not down. But it's not looking good at the moment as I'm just sliding a little bit here. It's really difficult to get the grip here, and I do not know why at all, to be honest. I might have to try and work more on the setup as we don't get the best of exits out of final corner there. As you can see, he's just punting away ahead, and someone actually goes around the outside of me there and makes him stick very nicely on me, which is not great at all, to say the least. But we'll keep pushing on because we still got 2 people behind us, but at the moment this is not looking good. We're just going to be going downhill, not up, which isn't great at all. But I will keep pushing on, trying to stick with these guys ahead. As you can see, they've already pulled a gap to me, so this is actually really bad. It's only lap 2 and I'm already having a gap pulled away from me, which is absolutely horrendous. As we come through the final corner, once again I'm really struggling through the final corner there and trying to get a good exit, so that might have to be something else I have to try and work on with my cornering speed through there. But through turn 1, once again make a massive mistake, run the curb too much, and that leaves me vulnerable as someone just sends it down the inside through the chicane and makes the move stick very nicely on me once again. So now we are second to last, which is really going bad for us, so we really need to try and pull something off here. And I'm just going to try and stick with this guy, try and follow his lines, try and do something to try and stay in my current position, maybe try and attack this guy back if I can. But look at that, he's just got away there with a bit of a gap straight away after getting past me, which is really bad, even though I feel like I'm pushing to the absolute limit, trying to keep up with this guy and maybe even get past him. It's just so difficult to try and keep with him, and I have no clue why. We did try and think about maybe switching the sprockets because I was really struggling with the speed out of corners, but as you can see we've made another mistake through there, gone a bit wide into the hairpin, and that is me down to dead last now, which is a massive shame. I tried to stick with this guy a bit, and I did for a couple laps and managed to just attack him a little bit, but really he just pulled away after that, after I just kept making mistakes and just really struggled to find grip around this track. So yeah, it wasn't a great race to say the least, but I guess we'll just have to keep pushing on and hoping we can maybe attack back this guy if he makes a mistake, but at the moment it's not looking great. And as we skip on to the final lap, look at the gap he's pulled, he's just gone down the road. That just shows how much I struggled in this race. But I come across a line in sadly dead last, which I was kind of annoyed about, but I guess that's racing sometimes. Yo Nathan, how's it going, bro?
Yeah, good. I'm not. Hang on. Yeah. Yeah, it's going good.
It's going good. He's doing some work.
Yeah, cheers.
He's changing the sprocket, aren't you, bro?
Yeah, I'm changing the rear sprocket. Yeah.
Because we've had
Just
problems.
slow.
Yeah, we've had problems out of the hairpin, so I'm gonna try that. But yeah. So now it is time for the pre-final. Obviously I really want to try and do better than what I did in qualifying and the heat 1, so I really need to try and make up time here, starting dead last once again obviously because of my terrible racing in heat 1, but nevertheless we will try and do better for the pre-final. We can only go upwards from here surely. And as you can see, coming through turn 1 there, we actually understeered a bit and someone's actually gone off there and spun, so made up an extra position for grid position, but sadly I did let him back through, but he actually dropped down again, so I am actually starting ahead of him. He was in an Evo though, so straight away I knew he was going to get past me immediately, so it's green lights here and straight away he gets past me, which isn't ideal, but it looks like I have a bit of a chance here around the outside and towards turn 1, just understeering a tiny bit though, but nevertheless still challenging with the pack here as we come into the chicane for the first time, get a pretty decent exit out of the chicane as we challenge Alex just ahead of us there, as he gets pushed a bit wide into the hairpin here, so I just take that as my chance to dive down the inside, get past him very nicely, and now through the horseshoe we have made the move stick. Now we just need to keep going. Someone spins there up ahead. He just got spun around by the other cart there just ahead of me, so maybe that could be a penalty for him. So if we just stay close enough, maybe we can have a good shout. But as we start lap 2 of the pre-final now, in towards turn 1, once again, very nicely, much better than the previous lap. In towards chicane, we actually struggled there with a bit of understeer, which wasn't great. So clearly the setup still not quite there, but I will need to try and practice that for next time. As we come through the hairpin section once again, as you get a pretty decent exit out of the hairpin, so the new sprocket's clearly working. And all was going pretty decently until this happened. So yeah, as you can see, I turn into the corner here, hit the apex, get a crack of oversteer, and try and catch it and keep the power down to avoid lose position, go on the grass, and boom, that's me around and out of the race, sadly, which really annoyed me quite a bit. And you could straight away tell there is damage, because after I pull away and carry on, you can see that, well, just look at it, it's just bumpy as hell. The rear axle's screwed. We found out there was a bent steering rod, bent steering column, and a bit of a bend in my chassis, and I'll just let you listen to my raw footage now.
Don't worry about it. Sorry. Okay, let's get it back. We've got another axle. We've got another axle. So that's what's got, is it? Okay, ready. No, my arm's taking a bit of a fun. I think it's steering arm and So, you may have seen the crash that just occurred in the pre-final. Not great, not gonna lie. Pretty bad. We got Nathan out here fixing it as we speak right now. Alright, Nathan? So, yeah, we bent the rear axle, which ain't great, and we may or may not have bent the steering as well, so yeah, not great. It was the left hand side, which is a bit of a pain, but I guess we'll have to see if we can get out in the final. Got a load of grass all over the car now. Hopefully we can get back out there, so yeah, just have to hope though. So boys, that crash, it ended it. I absolutely messed it, so yeah, that's it. The legend, Nathan, absolutely just, he went to work with it. He went to work, he got the changed axle, rear axle done. But the problem is my stupid ass asked for a secondary pre-owned axle, which is a tiny bit damaged, and we didn't realise at the time. So yeah, unfortunately, we could not compete in the final, but we did get this changed, so that is all good. We need to change the steering column because that's still a little bit bent. We tried to whack it into place for the final, but it wasn't meant to be. So, but yeah, a pretty disappointing day, but I'll take it. But absolute credits to the man over there, Mr. Nathan Simpson, absolute legend. Like, we would have had it done if it wasn't for me asking for a pre-owned axle, but yeah, it is what it is, I guess.